See something new really, coming up. I see this is a start of something new, right? And I'm really excited. Great to interact with all of you. So what I've done is I've put together a couple of thoughts around what I feel entrepreneurship is and how is it going to really change over the next couple of years. And of course, I feel that when you talk about entrepreneurship, it is not necessarily just a startup alone, right? I mean, it's to do with a mindset and the way in which you perceive yourself as an individual. If you have an entrepreneurial mindset, I believe that is a skill set that you essentially need to succeed in any realm of career or life, right? I mean, that's an attitude. So since there is a mix of people that I see in the audience, I will keep the subject and my topic and what I need to present in such a fashion that it's comfortable with all of you. I'll address two parts of it. One is, of course, my personal experience. And, there are certain things in the industry that are really happening, which I'd probably give a glimpse to, and we can dwell on it a little bit. And I also want to really touch upon the skills that I feel is really important for a person to be very successful in being an entrepreneur. So that is what is a summary of what I'm going to talk today. And feel free to stop me and ask questions. I'll be all the more happy to, kind of jump into it. So really, I mean, the whole concept of new age entrepreneurship is not just a business idea in itself, right? I mean, if you really think about it, there are people who have started very small with a small thing. It doesn't necessarily have to be something big, right? It is to pretty much lead a very exciting, pulsating life. Your idea of entrepreneurship is an attitude which will allow you to move away from mediocrity to something which is very aspirational and creating the best version of yourself. And that is my view of entrepreneurship. Another very important factor that I felt when I took an entrepreneurial jump is, how do you become honest to yourself and not just try to meet someone else's expectation about who you are or who you want to be? Because, in an organizational setup, you're always trying to achieve certain goals, certain metrics. I have been working for close to 22 years. And then I said, if I were to do something, why is it that I should be different? What is that different that I can bring to the table? So those are some of the things that it came to my mind the moment I started thinking that I have to be doing something of my own. And really, it is to be yourself 100%, to be really fully yourself. So I started this entrepreneurial journey into 2017, 2018. I feel that it was way late. If you were to ask me, I would have done it when I was in my 20s, right? If I were to go back and change something, I would definitely say I could have started early, right? See, there are a couple of things that make an entrepreneur who he is and maybe want to take a jump. One is the fact that you need a change from what is routine, right? It allows you to really create something using your creativity. And today, in today's world, in the last 5 to 10 years, your whole dynamics of entrepreneurship has changed, right? Today, you have easy access to resources, risk capital, knowledge, which is at your fingertips. Everything is at your fingertips. Availability and reach of technology is so vast. So really, this is the right time to do something on your own and really start delving into, something that you really want to do. So let me tell you a little about Sign On, right? What I do is, as a CEO and founder of Sign On, what I do is really work with companies and organizations in the space of digital transformation. I work with insurance companies, I work with hospitality organizations, manufacturing, trying to really understand their entire digital ecosystem. Today, digital transformation is a fad, and it's something that is a service offering that many companies try to do in-house. What I do as an organization is really go in and suggest how can you really transform your way of doing things to get yourself attuned to what the customer really demands. And really digital transformation is all about that. And we've been working with large insurance organizations like Pet Plan, Pet Cover. I've been in the pet insurance space for quite some time, the last 4 or 5 years. We have worked with manufacturing companies, we worked with hospitality organizations, trying to give them an edge over competition, right? So really digital transformation is about leveraging data, understanding, using analytics, using different tools, presenting the right kind of customer journey that you need to use, and then building a platform. It is not just about implementing a tool or a software and so on. So how companies are looking at software implementation has undergone a tremendous shift over the last many years. So if you learn about digital transformation, and those of you who are in the technology space will really understand that it's all about data. How are you leveraging data? How are you communicating with customers? How are you understanding the risk reward relationship that you have with your partners and so on? So that is the area that I am in. And in the next couple of slides, what I'll do is I'll talk about how do you master yourself first, in terms of as an entrepreneur. How do you chisel your skills so that you're able to create the right idea that you want to do over a period of time? So just let me know if I'm going too fast. Pause me, because I might just rattle on and rumble. So all right. Okay, so I put this picture in front of many of my friends and people, and ask, what do you see in this picture? You see the story, right? I don't expect you to answer, but I'm just telling you, right? You see a story. So, and each person might perceive this picture in a different way, right? You might see a family, you might see somebody telling a story to a child, you might see a narration. So here, the biggest question is, what is your story? Because each person has a different perspective about even a single picture. But when it comes to you as an individual, what is your story? How can you discover that single purpose of your life that you're so passionate about? What is really irritating you as an individual? Can I change it? What is your purpose, right? Ultimately, I feel that many a times, you look at yourself and see, hey, look, there are certain things that you want to do, but you can't do. What is that single purpose that drives you? What is your calling? And what I would do is really understand that purpose. What is that one line that tells me that I'm really passionate about today? What is that single most important thing in my life that is causing me pain that I need to solve? Of course, you have you have to take care of your family, you've got to take care of your finance, you've got to I'm not talking about all that. I'm talking about a theme that you want to select as a story of your entrepreneurial journey, right? Because if you really see today's world, your definition of entrepreneurship is really blurred, right? Many reasons to it. Like, now technology is a big leveler, right? Technology can help you reach any corner of the world with a click of the button. You see viral videos coming up, you see content which is viral, you see people just becoming overnight successes on songs, just one song, and it becomes a hit, right? So your ability to reach an audience with your passion is so powerful today that all what you need to do is create that singular most important thing that you're really passionate about and drive that. So what I probably did is write down what I want to be, right? What is that one line that tells me who I am, that I stand for, that I'm really passionate about, right? That one line, and keep that as your goal, right? See, if you really see your whole companies and how organizations are changing, I just want to talk about that a little. Today, there is a level playing field as far as technology is concerned. Knowledge is accessible at your fingertips. Unlike earlier, you needn't have somebody tell you what to do. Earlier you needed to have advice from people what to do. Today, Google is there to tell you, right? So knowledge in terms of your trivial knowledge, which is how to do, what to do, why to do, most of it can be answered, but not the why to do. So the why to do is something that you must answer yourself, and that is your starting step, according to me, right? And see how the last 5 years your companies have evolved. The companies which have stuck to the traditional way of doing things have actually been sidelined quite dramatically. Look at all the newspapers, right? Newspapers are soon becoming obsolete. Your news, if I were to if I were to look at it, I don't read my newspaper to figure out what is really happening in in politics today. All what you need to do is follow a few people on Twitter. You come to know what is happening, right? So news has become very linear and very accessible to everybody on certain platforms. Look at content, where we used to go to theaters to watch movies just about 5 to 10 years back. Now you're getting the picture home. Even live releases are happening home at home. So the technology being a big leveler, and I feel that it is going to have a tremendous impact in the next 4 to 5 years in all walks of life, not just in one or two areas. It is going to dramatically transform a whole lot of things like education, right? Look at Byju's, for example. I was talking to somebody the other day. Byju's valuation is sitting at $20 billion right now, and which is equivalent to close to what, 15,000 crores, 15 to 20,000 crores. A company which is just running a portal with some bit of education with such a huge valuation. And what it gives them is the power of money to reach an audience, right? So valuation is not just a finance game. It is about your ability to influence quite a lot of people. And serious investors have pumped in a lot of money into organizations which are able to create that influence. So really, if you see the pattern that is happening on a larger board, there are two things. One is, of course, the technology play. The second is the ability to influence multiple areas or streams of life. Companies who are able to influence you in different walks of life are getting valued, are getting the funds, are getting the ability to innovate, are getting capital, are getting people with skills and so on. So with the kind of valuation that companies have, they're able to achieve much more. So it is a small idea which is then being pumped up by capital, and their reach and influence is dramatically shifting. Uh, so let us just pause there for a minute and ask ourselves, what is causing this shift, right? What is really causing? Is it money? Is it technology? Is it, is it, the way in which business is panning out because technology is being applied in different ways? Is it learning? So I feel there are many things coming together which is causing this. And the most important thing which is causing all of this is the singular most factor, that there are different areas of life that are still untapped, right? Which I feel is a huge potential, right? For example, uh, art. I don't know if you know about Etsy. Etsy is a great company to follow. All what it does is it sells handmade things online, right? Another good story in India to follow is the crowdfunding platform Millup.org. You can just go there, register yourself, and put a story there and expect people to contribute. So there are different ideas and different areas that are being touched upon by this whole concept of technology, influence, and reach, right? And the question is, where do you want to see yourself, right? Where do you want to apply yourself? So today the question is about where and why, not how do I do it, what do I do. It is about, I have a creative potential, I have an ability to apply myself. Can I do it? How can I do it, right? And can I get the kind of resources that I need to do it? Is never a question, because it automatically comes. So I'll now show you a particular idea which I use, which is called the continuous innovation framework. And this becomes a little technical for some of you, but I'll just take a few seconds and pause there and just ask you if you're able to understand some of it, right? uh, as I said, there are different platforms that are at play, there are different technologies and so on, but there are three fundamental factors of human behavior which is driving this, right? Whole change or innovation, right? We call it the continuous innovation framework. One is the desirability, which is your ability to create, something new and make it very attractive. You've got a great idea, but it's not attractive. People may not buy it, right? Second is feasibility. Is it presenting itself at the right time, and can the technology really deliver it, right? And viability, which is, if I were to make it do something like this, can it become economically viable? Can it self-sustain? And so on, right? So these are the three major behavioral attributes. I wouldn't call it behavioral. I would call it different aspects of, what is. And the sweet spot is there, your innovation design, right in the middle, right? So that is your sweet spot, where the most successful ideas and the most successful um, companies tend to perform. Even individuals tend to perform at that area, right? And of course, there are different technologies and different things that you can talk about and different models. I will not go into that, and I probably require a different session or a different, discussion around it. And if people have any questions, I'll be glad to answer it at a later stage. Okay, now, before I come to this, I don't know if how many of you've heard of the word Ikigai, right? Ikigai is a beautiful concept where, it is a Japanese method of discovering oneself, right? Now, no school teaches you this, right? No school tells you, how do you kind of discover who you are, what is the reason that you stand for, and so on. Ikigai is something like that. It is a Japanese philosophy of life, and this whole concept originated in Okinawa in Japan. And Ikigai is used as a philosophy where, if you really see, there are these blue zones that are different parts of the world that are, that are there. There are blue. It's called the blue zones because most people who are more than 100 years old live in those zones, right? And Okinawa has the highest concentration of people who are 100 years old plus and living a very healthy and fantastic life, right? And so there are a few people who went there and documented this. So if you really see, there's this book, a picture of that I put there. It's a nice book to read. It's called Ikigai, and it's ultimately a culmination of what you love and what the world needs most, and what can you really get paid for, and what are we really good at, right? And the sweet spot in the middle is called the Ikigai. So what Ikigai does is allow you to focus on your passion throughout your entire career, not just in a short term, but in the long term, right? And for me, and I believe for all entrepreneurs who are budding entrepreneurs who really want to test themselves, you need to know what your Ikigai is. You need to know and discover that, which is the most fundamental question, the why, right? The moment you discover your why, I feel that, it'll give you the edge over many things. You might have challenges. For me, for example, I've had a huge bunch of challenges when I did my startup. When I decided to start up. Even through the journey of doing something of your own, you're faced with challenges. You are constantly pushed to the corner, and that's something that you have to get used to, because you just not only have to take care of your, family and your subsistence, but you also need to take care of your company and how they think and how they perform. And it's not just your performance which is important, but your team's performance. So that becomes even more important, and I have a slide on that and how do you kind of manage your team. But first, let us stick to what is your purpose, right? The moment you identify your purpose, I think quite a lot of your questions will get answered. Do I have to work? Do I have to work for somebody else? Can I do something of my own? What are the risks that are involved? Can I overcome some of those risks? Financial, personal risks. In my personal capacity, can I do more than what I'm doing today? Because entrepreneurship is about, all cards in. you have to put absolutely all cards on the table, and you can't keep a card to yourself, because you can't say, I won't do that. You have to do everything, right? What everybody else does. So the question is really, what is your Ikigai? There is another very important factor that makes you successful. Two factors. One is observation, right? And the second most important thing is the art of value creation. Right? Let's talk about observation. Now, let's say you discover your Ikigai, you discover your purpose. Now you have to narrow down on the idea that you want to change. You want to narrow down on that particular aspect of business that you want to focus on. It may be business, it may be developing a skill, it may be helping others. Because, as I said, today's entrepreneurial opportunity is not just making money. It is about helping others. It is about service. It is about, investing in the future, right? It is also about saving and, creating a green economy. So the first aspect of that is really observe what you really want to change, right? Observe not just oneself, but also the others who are working in that area, right? So if you take, for example, take an idea that you want to change. The most important aspect is you need to see the larger picture. You cannot avoid the larger picture. You have to document it really well. You have to be able to respect every aspect of that picture in an unbiased fashion, which means there will be very uncomfortable questions that will come your way. Isn't there somebody else doing the same thing? Why should I come in? What is the value that I create, right? Maybe there is no value that you create, but you need to be able to observe and respect every aspect of the observation. And you should try and not focus on the details initially. You become hazy, you delay the focus, and there are different techniques that you can use to kind of delay your, you have very sound observation of the area that you want to change. Say, for example, in the case of Steve Jobs, right? I just want to talk about that. I was reading one of the books, and Steve Jobs was very interested in calligraphy, which is the art of writing beautiful, right? The art of fonts. He was also traveling the world in search of spiritual enlightenment, whereby he touched upon minimalism, right? And if you really see Apple as a product, that is an iconic piece, right? I mean, those of you who have used Apple products like a Mac, in fact, I'm presenting from a Mac, you will know that it is a piece of art and it just works. I've never seen a time when it is stopped working. It is and definitely the aesthetics of the product is fantastic, which is incomparable, and that is why it is the most valued brand. So what has he done? Because he liked all these 3 or 4 things in his own career, what he did was, when he created something new, all flavors of that product culminated in something that he created. And that is really the art of creating value, right? It is about using your skills and applying it in a very practical sense in an area that you wish changed. And the second most important thing about value creation is really growing your circle of influence, right? How do you grow your circle of influence? It is about reaching to a larger audience. It is about, talking to people. It is about communication and a whole lot of other things. And the more you share, the more you grow. So these 2 aspects, which is observation and the art of value creation, has to go in tandem for you to be successful. So I'm just rattling on. Just pause me if I'm going too fast or slow. And
Jaydev, there is actually one question which has come from Shivani, and she says that just a minute, let me scroll. She says that, can the purpose evolve through the journey?
Yes, so that's a very nice question. When the purpose can never be static, right? My view is that you have discovered something that you need to change, or you discover a purpose in your life that is really something that you want to follow, and say for example you've articulated that purpose in words. Tomorrow what might happen is you might have something that changes in the way in which you perceive the problem, right? So it doesn't mean you say, no, I will stick to the same thing and I will say that, I've met I've discovered my purpose, uh, and I will not change. That is not the idea. The idea is your purpose has to be something which is lofty enough, which is quite, uh, how do I say, quite large, so that each time you're able to be closer to the goal, you very well know that, look, your purpose is something that is quite fulfilling in your life, right? And it is something that is able to not just be a narrow, I have to make $10 million, or whatever, 1 5 crore rupees or whatever, right? I don't want that to be. I don't think that articulating it in that fashion is something that is the right thing. Your purpose has to be discovered from within, right? It is something that is bothering you, it is something that is exciting you, it is something that has to be uh, that you feel like, I know for a fact that most of your great leaders are people who have always tried to influence others, who have the ability to influence others. So you're not just creating a small dimension of something to be achieved as your goal. So your goal has to be significantly larger than that. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, Shivani says it's a great response. And I would also like to, add a little bit to this. It's not so easy, for lots of books have been written, as you said, one of the Japanese books, and there's so many others about how do you figure out what you really want. And that's not all that easy. So probably that's what would have been at the back of mind, which Shivani had, that you think you understand that, okay, this is what I want, and then you start. No, sometimes it could also, I mean, I'm telling my from my own experience also. What happens is that you start with something, but then you think that, okay, this is not for me. So during the journey itself, there might be a lot of, one is that, okay, you have one singular purpose and you're trying to figure out during the journey as to how I'll do it. You might find some ways which are not right, then you take another way. But sometimes what might also happen that people might take a lot of time to even understand what they really want, what they are passionate about. Because the way we have grown up, the schooling that we have here, it doesn't really inspire us to follow our dreams. We have to follow the paths that are treaded. We have to follow the careers that have already been tested by people. Uh, so I guess a lot of trials and errors also, lead us to what we exactly want. What do you
Absolutely.
say?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the fact of life is that for me, I don't think there is a black and white answer to many of your questions, right? And in all honesty, even if you arrive at a black and white answer, many a times it can be, it may not be the right answer. It
True.
changes. So yeah, however, your journey, if your journey is exciting, right, that in itself is the fruit of the thing that you want to discover. Because if you're able to discover a journey which is quite fulfilling, you know it's a fulfilling is a very elusive word.
Right.
It is very difficult because
Yeah.
each person sees each interaction or each doing in a different way,
Hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
that makes your journey even more exciting, because I can choose the way I want to see things, right, the same way as you can. And my perspective is also different to you, so I cannot expect you to kind of have the same way of doing things as I am. And with
Absolutely.
what, so today, what is happening, and that is exactly the change that I feel is happening in today's generation. Most of the children, if you really ask my kids, right? I mean, they all say this. I don't want to typically go for the exact job fit that all of you did. They want to discover something themselves. They want to own that discovery and then do something on their own. The moment you try to prod them into doing some particular, take a particular path or take a particular job or a course, you're setting them up for failure. And that is a big shift of mentality that you see, because they
Yes.
understand there is a whole world out there which is free,
Hmm.
open, democratic. It is a world of ideas. It is a world of imagination, and there's a whole lot of new things and exciting things that are happening. You don't want to restrict yourself into a small box. And
True.
just because you feel restricted, it doesn't mean you're restricted. It just means you're not exploring,
Yeah.
right?
We also have a
And
comment from Ankita Avasthi. She says that when there are many gray haired players in the market and one is naive in the field of practicing, how can one pitch himself or herself?
yeah,
Yeah,
it,
that's the
it is true,
question.
Ankita. It is always a challenge, because see, what comes with the gray hair is something called, the halo effect. I don't know if I know some of you may have heard the word halo effect. Halo effect is nothing but, say, just because he has this designated this with so many years of experience, he can do it. That is called the halo effect. Just because I am a good accountant, you cannot expect me to become a good CFO. Because see, many a times the halo effect allows people to move forward in their career in erstwhile days. Just because you have 5 years of experience, you get a designation, 10 years. But I'll tell you, today, in today's entrepreneurial context, that entire myth is being broken. If you see all the people who are coming up with great ideas, people who are very creative thinkers, are all people who have just passed out of college, who have that energy, who have that drive, who see things differently. So I feel the biggest attitude an entrepreneur can have in today's context is not the fact that you can do things in a certain fashion. It is the ability to overcome that thought that it should be done in this way. You should overcome that, and that is creative thinking. The more creative you are, I feel, uh, your gray hair does not matter.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
All right. See, of course, the flip side is the gray haired guy has mastered the art of, you know he has done something in his life, right? He has, of course, because of his experience, he has seen certain things which you haven't. But what he lacks is, because he has seen so many things, he has a certain way of doing things. But a guy who is fresh into a problem or a mindset, there's no restriction. So you are in a very creative space. And that factor of creativity is very important. All right. So the other thing I wanted to, a couple of more slides, and then we can straight go to a Q&A if we wish. Failure. So this is one area that I really want to delve on, because we don't expect things to fail, right? And that's a wrong thing. You have to expect failure, because the more times you fail, you may succeed one time. That's my view. You may not succeed all the time. So you need to have, you need to be able to continuously improvise. You need to be able to create small centers of excellence within your team. You should not put all eggs in one basket. Most importantly, have plan A, plan B, plan C, and plan E and D, right? So the more number of plans you have, the better, and plan to fail. uh, so what I'll do is I'll tell you a little about the 5 things that I feel is very important to master yourself. One is your inner faculty, and one is your external faculty. Your inner faculty is your habits, your concept of minimalism, your mindfulness, and being fully aware and awake. And your external faculties are your creativity, How do you execute what you have really thought about? And how do you master the art yourself, and how do you master others, right? So those are the five key aspects of success. uh, let's talk about habits a little, right? This is something that you see as a habit, as a pattern across all entrepreneurs who are really successful, right? uh, I know you probably would have heard, how you do not procrastinate. How can you not procrastinate? How can you just make sure that you do everything on time? That's a very important character, a facet of an entrepreneur with an entrepreneurial mindset. How can you really deprioritize certain things over others? For example, if you try to, like, I know people who tend to focus too much on, your marketing and your sales, but focus less on your internal processes, and make sure your internal processes are good. So how do you strike that right balance? One of it is your habits manifest in the organization. You should understand that. So you should have a great habit. You should have a healthy lifestyle. You should have a good mental well-being. How do you create a great routine for yourself? Not just create it, but you should be able to step out of it without affecting the routine. How do you join the 5 a.m. club? And I don't know if you've heard of this 5 a.m. club, but one of the things that people say is people who wake up early tend to become sharper and smarter, because it has always been in the Indian context, it has always been the case that people who wake up early tend to get things done much better, right? And how do you create a rhythm in your life and and in your business and in what you do, and how do you keep practicing this, right? So habit becomes a very important factor. The other thing is the concept of minimalism. Minimalism is something which is a culture, right? By default, nature is very minimalistic. They will just take the right amount of things, what is required, and leave the excess. So, for example, the food that you eat, if you have the right amount of salt, it tastes perfect, right? A little bit of more salt and it tastes different. The same with all the aspects of nature, right? So minimalism teaches us how do you declutter, how do you focus on the essential, how do you express only the basic, and how it does not seek attention, and what arises naturally. you know if you ask me why it is most important to an entrepreneur, is your ability to focus, right? And that is an internal faculty that comes naturally because you're forced to do it. But you can do it by design. You can make it a practice, right? How do what are the benefits that comes out of practicing minimalism? It means you're able to bring a lot of clarity to your thought. That's the most important benefit. Second thing, it eliminates all unwanted material mind matter that tends to occupy your mind. It allows you to focus your time and energy. It allows you to express more freely. It allows you to focus on your health. It allows you to contribute beyond yourself, right? So there are several aspects of minimalism that really stands out. What it does mean is really you unclutter your thoughts, your ideas, you unfollow, you unsubscribe people who does not really matter, right? You really don't focus too much on areas that you don't want to give energy to. The idea is to really narrow down your focus and leave the rest. So I don't know if you know the story of how, not the story, but the practice of how your snow skiers ski between trees, right? I was hearing the story. It's a wonderful story where they don't teach you how to see the trees, right? They tell you ignore the trees. You just follow the path. You follow the gaps between the trees. So by that, the more you tend to focus on the negative, which is the tree, it is easy for you to go and hit the tree. So the more you move away from the negative to your path, you're able to focus on your path. So just by doing and practicing certain things in your personal life, it has a tremendous impact on your career and your whole manifestation of what your idea is going to be, right? And the very important aspect of minimalism is really reconciliation, which is the final stage of all of this, which is, you know, whatever that you're going to do is going to become very aesthetic in terms of your relationships, in terms of your networking. Because as an entrepreneur, that is one thing that you must have, the art of really networking, right? And how do you manage your finances well? How do you manage your numbers well, both within the organization and outside? So the art of minimalism, there is a book, and I have a list of books in the last slide I will share with you. It's a fantastic set of books. In that, there is one book about minimalism. The other very important aspect is the aspect of mindfulness. I'm thinking that many of you are all well read on this, uh, but I'll just present and talk about it a little. It is about really getting your mind and whole focus on your present moment. And how do you make sure that you're embracing the present moment? So there is an app, even an app running, people download, called the Headspace. And there are many apps on the App Store. One of it is Headspace. Then there's a gentleman called Andy. He started off with a TED talk, and it is available on YouTube. All it takes is 10 mindful minutes. It's a beautiful talk where he talks about how mindfulness is so important for you to be present, graceful, and really focus all your energies. And the idea is really mindfulness is the key to performance, right? If you're mindful about yourself, if you're mindful about your own performance and how it relates to the other person, you can perform better. You can you can sleep better. You can de-stress yourself easily, right? There is stress naturally created in all our environments. When you interact with somebody, when you interact with people, there is always a stress, because they're not always asking you comfortable questions. You have to deal with discomfort. How do you de-stress yourself? It is something that is taught to us, is not really taught to us, right? Mindfulness is really talking about that. And how do you really be alert? How do you achieve peak performance, and so on? There is the whole concept of how breath is connected to the thought and this whole feeling, right? How do you really manage your breath well, so that your thoughts and your feelings are able to manifest naturally in what you do? How do you strengthen your body mind connection, right? So that through your career and throughout whatever that you're doing, despite of all the stress and despite of all the challenges, you're still healthy, you're still very awake, you're still very contributing. And the most important aspect of it is accept life as is, because not all the time is it successful. You will be faced with failure, right? So that is what mindfulness is all about. uh, yeah, I mean, see, now comes your execution part. Now I've talked about personal. Till now I was talking about personal performance, right? How do you master being a good performer yourself? And now comes the execution part, which is applying what you have learned in an organization or in your concept. There are several factors to it, and there are several people who have done books, who have written books on it, on how do you really apply your ideas, how do you really become a great executionist, right? And there are different people are different ideas and concepts and philosophies behind it. One of the people I recently, off late, I think, who has made a significant inroad into it is Simon Sinek. And I keep hearing some of his talks, which is and he's also written a couple of books. And I strongly recommend you to kind of hear some of his talks. He talks about the golden circle: why, how, and what, right? uh, the moment you are able to understand that concept, it is easy for you to apply your ideas and your execute your concepts very well. Because unless the why is answered, your how and the what will not make any sense to an organization, to the people around you. So the concept of why is really understanding the intent, behind the individual who's sitting across you to the table, right? Why is he here? Why does he want to change? Why should he talk? Why should he talk to me? Why should he buy from me? Get the why right, and then the how and the what naturally gets answered. So it's a great book, great talk. You should hear it. And there are different things, a part of this whole applying creativity in an organization to really master this whole execution thing. And I think it requires a lot of delving into. There are so many things, aspects of it, which are important. And you need to understand yourself well. You need to understand your competition well, and so on. That's one of the things. And the other thing is you need to build your own sangha or your tribe. When you're growing, you need to have your own team to grow with. And how do you select the people that you want to grow with? Who are your team members? Do you look for inclusivity and diversity? Do you look at people? Typically what people do is select people who are similar to me, and that's where most interviews fail, right? I tend to select a person who exactly replicates my thought process, and that is not the right thing. you know you need to have different energies. You need to have a blend of contrasting people, and so on. So the other thing is very important is the way you communicate, right? And it is a whole subject in itself. Communication, and in just one line I will tell you this, that communication is not just about language. It is not just about how you talk, how you present. It is a whole lot more, because it is about the word itself is means commune. It means you have to come together, right? Your energies have to come together. You have to be able to see the other person beyond the language or the words that the person is talking, right? uh, and of course you need to take a break, and you need to be able to sit back and enjoy the ride. A very important part of doing something of your own is just this, right? So that's about it. Few thoughts from my side, and I also have a few books that I think are that kind of made sense to me. I've put that on the page. Some of it I spoke about, like mindfulness and the why. Start with the why, and as you think, and your minimalist rule book, the business for good. And I just want to, before I leave, I just want to leave you with a thought that, look, these are some images that you see on the slide here are not just entrepreneurs. Most of them are social entrepreneurs, right? They are people who have made a significant change in the way in which things are being done, right? And like, for example, you see, this Tulsi Gowda here. I was really surprised, because all what she did was document the undocumented, and she has a huge repository of trees and plants and herbs that she's planted in her life, which is like, you don't even realize there are people like this, right? And people are doing it. So there are different styles of entrepreneurship and different types of service that you can follow in today's world. The question is, what do you choose, right? Where do you want to see yourself? So yeah, so that's about it. And it was really nice talking to you. I think unless any questions are there.
I think it was lovely hearing you, and I would have loved to hear you more because it was really inspiring. Now, I request our audience to shoot their questions in case they have any.
So
I'm
can I
sure.
unmute myself and put
Yeah.
it across,
Hi,
Rohini?
hi, Frija.
Hi, Rohini. In fact, a very nice, very inspiring and interesting talk. As usual, you bring great speakers on this forum. I thoroughly enjoyed Mr. Jayadev's talk. But, sir, my question is, to be very frank with you, being into this, working for somebody all the time, though I have this fire in the belly, I want to start something. To be very frank with you, I don't have the guts. I always fear to take the risks involved. I always fear to take, those challenges. Yes, I think I do a great job for others. I work for organizations. I work for my stakeholders. I'm a super performer, I should say that. But then when it comes to my setup, I want to, because people ask me, they whet my appetite. They ask me, why don't you start your own setup? Why don't you start your own enterprises? But then the fact of the matter is, I fail to garner my strength. I fail to leverage my, uh, internal, that ikigai somewhere or the other. So, do you think you have some simple mantra to tell me how to work on my fears, which are lurking around all the time?
See, but one thing I must tell you is that not many of us are expected to do something of your own, really. I mean, that is the honest reality. Many of us are expected to work with something else, right? And the biggest fear most people have is not just fear of doing something. It is actually two things. One is the fear of failure, and the fear of fail then the fear of fear itself. you know so it is very strange. Sometimes you're not sure why you're afraid. You're just afraid. You're not able to pinpoint and say this is one reason. If you ask me what is causing you fear, so I feel that the only way to kind of overcome that is you have to dive in. You just have to dive in. And my grandmom always used to tell me, when I was afraid of starting to swim, she used to tell me, don't worry about the water, because that is a big fear when you're a child, no, just going into the water. It's so deep and all that, I don't even know, and you're seeing others swim but you really want to. So what she did is, you just dive in and test the water. You don't know what will happen at the most. That is a big attitude, right? I mean,
In fact,
finally,
Yeah.
what will happen at the most?
what you earlier said, Jaydev, was about the passion. I think the passion, when we love something strongly, when we are passionate about something, that fear, that gives us the ability to overcome our fear. Being a woman, I would say, when we become a mother, I'm sure men also feel the same way when they become parents, and it's your first time, and
You don't
you
know how
you
it is,
really don't
no?
know how
Yeah.
to do it, but you want to do it because you love your child. You have to do it. So I think the business that you start is also like a baby, and but the strong feeling and the passion for that concept, I think that drives us,
Yeah,
as you rightly
absolutely.
said, Jaydev, about the passion.
Yeah. And you see, another factor is, if somebody else has done it, you can do it. It's a thumb rule, right? And I see, Ankita saying that, right? You associate yourself with people who've done it. That's the easy way out. Just follow the story, and it's so. But then, that is not your idea. You should understand the problem there. The problem there is, if you're trying to follow a pattern, you can become very successful. If I try to do something like, I know Baiju started not Baiju, somebody else started, Udemy started it, and then Baiju's followed, right? Baiju is now valued far ahead of Udemy. I'm just saying an example, right? Just following in the foot of Baiju, there is Vedantu, which has started, and there is Unlearn, which has started. There are like a trillion others, and those companies are being acquired by Baiju. That is another strategy. You follow, you do the same thing, replicate it, you become successful, and then slowly change the style. You change the style and adapt it to what you want to.
Right.
But honestly, the first step is the most difficult step. Just to dive in and say I'll do it. That is always a big question. You whatever perfect plan you have, you don't know how it is going to pan out. I can tell you that much.
True.
That is guaranteed. In the last 5 years, that's what I've learned. I
Sometimes a
had the
life
perfect plan, and today what I'm doing is completely different. So
sometimes a life kicks you, and then you're not left with any option but to be an entrepreneur. That also happens. COVID must have done that to a lot of people. who lost their
I mean, that
jobs.
is what you're seeing today, right? I mean, everybody is now on the entrepreneurial spree. Everybody wants to do
Yes.
something of their own. And you know, a lot of my friends have left their corporate job. They've taken up farming. They're leading a very
That's
happy life, content life. That is also a way to, you know, entrepreneurship, right? I mean, you're doing
yes.
something of your own.
You're using new technology and you're growing it in a different manner. You're more educated, I guess. If the farmers in a country are educated, they can do wonders, and it's lovely. Um, okay, Rinky says very comprehensive and inspiring session. Looking forward to more. So, do we have any more questions from anyone? No. So I guess we'll wind up. And Jaydev, I really want to thank you because it was a lovely session. Thank you for your time, and thanks to every other person who has been here today to hear this inspiring session. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.